Now, we're still sitting at the dam, doing a bit of birding. It's such a beautiful afternoon. There's golden light at the moment. Still enjoying this crocodile. There's just a great view of him. Or her, I'm not sure. Now, LMI, that's an interesting question. You asked which bite is more dangerous, a hippo or a crocodile? I wonder. So I think the bite force of the crocodile is stronger because the downward force that the crocodile would bite with, I think, is more powerful than that of a hippo. However, the hippo will move its jaws or open its mouth really wide, and therefore it can get those huge teeth into you. That's a tricky one. I don't know. I'm trying to think, if I had to be bitten, what would I rather be bitten by? That's the best way of trying to work it out. Now, I'm not sure. Seb, what do you think? I mean, a hippo will put an entire hole through you, but then possibly let go and move on and run away. A crocodile, if it bites you, if it grabs you, will try and twist and pull a limb off or pull you under. Sure. See, the crocodiles don't chew, but they'll just try and snap once or twice and pull you under, whereas a hippo will open and close its mouth a number of times and bite you. Put it this way, either way, you're in trouble. You're in serious trouble. It's just there's some playful behavior by those two hippo. Doesn't look like serious fighting or anything. That whole pod is congregated around that area at the moment. I saw some pied wagtails around here earlier, but they flew off, unfortunately. I'm hoping that they decide to come back. Scanning around, having a look for different birds. Now we know there is an African harrier hawk nest on Chitwa, and I might drive past there just now, just to go and have a look and see if we can't see that bird. We haven't been lucky. The past 2 or 3 occasions we've driven past, we haven't seen it. But maybe this afternoon, you never know. Sinak, you asked if the fish eagles would feed on the little crocodiles or crocodile eggs. So not the eggs, Sinak. I doubt that. The reason I say that is the crocodiles bury their eggs. So to find the nest is impossible for the fish eagle. In terms of little crocodiles, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if the fish eagles really feed on reptiles that often. I mean, some reptiles, but I want maybe a crocodile and even a water monitor. There's a possibility that it could try feed on a water monitor, but it doesn't happen often. Well, not that I've seen. But I mean, the fish eagles will also feed on small mammals, or prey that wanders down to the water's edge, perhaps. They also scavenge. The fish eagles will scavenge off carcasses from time to time, anything that's died near or around the water. Now I think I'm going to go and have a look, see if we can find that African harrier hawk. Why don't we go across to James, who apparently has an artistic view on some grass in the wind.
This is the most exciting thing you will ever see in the Masai Mara. What we have here in amongst the waving columns of grass are 2 lions, one of which is wagging its tail. If you can believe it, I know you didn't expect to have your heart in your throat throughout the course of this drive, but here we sit with a wagging lion tail in amongst the grass. Fascinating. Well, I had to sort of try and build this up a little bit. There's a head up, left. Look at this. What we have here, everybody, are the 2 young male lions who've been knocking about here. They've been beaten up once or twice by dominant males of the area, and they have also been eating many wildebeest. They are currently in what is known as a non-off-roading zone. That means a zone in which there is not allowed to be any off-roading. But I'm hoping that come the end of the drive, or not the end of the drive, the end of the sun, they will get up and move towards something edible. And there are lots of herds not too far from them. So we'll sit with them for a little while and then perhaps come back here a bit later. Barbara, you're wondering if most cats live a nomadic life. Most male cats live a nomadic life. They don't at all, Barbara. Once they're mature, they are almost always territorial and they stop being nomadic. But before they're big enough to take a territory or dominate an area, then absolutely they will be nomadic. That goes for leopards, it goes for cheetah, it goes for that steamingly lazy cat who's just put his head back down, leaving us with the same excitement we began with. And it goes for African wildcats, it goes for house cats even. They will do exactly the same sort of thing. I'm trying to think of another kind of a cat. A serval, yes, I think that would be the same. A tiger, yes, absolutely be the same. So all cats, male, if they're not adult, will become nomadic. But what's interesting also is that in an area such as, say, a fenced reserve, for example, like Pinda in South Africa, where they introduce lions and they have to manage the population quite carefully because it's not very big, what you'll find is that lions become territorial much more quickly than they would in an area like this, where there are big males dominating them. So, nice question. Thank you for that, Barbara. I think that this sighting has given us pretty much all that it's going to. And so we're going to move away from here, and I'm going to come back as the sun starts to set and see if we can't catch these 2 cats on the hunt. On we go. Are you ready, Manu?
Ready.
Good, thank you. Why do you sound like Joe Cocker? Right, well, I'll try and find out what on earth has happened to Manu's voice. We're going to go to Scott, who apparently is doing a cowboy thing into the sunset.
Hello. Yes, we are making our way hastily to an area called the Salt Lick. But seeing as though you guys have just joined us, we'll stop and enjoy the sighting of these elephants, of which there only appear to be 3 here, but there were some behind us, so they could be part of a bigger herd, but they've just kind of slightly spread out. Beautiful. I'm always very impressed by the size of the tusks of the females up here in the Mara. There are some impressive ladies. And well done, I'm glad James has found some lions, so that's promising prospects for him later. This is probably, the elephant on the right behind the 2 in the front is probably an older sibling. So this will be a mother with, I'm guessing, her 2 youngsters, just judging by the size of the 2 and the fact that there's just the 3 of them here. This one I'd guess to be around 5 or 6 years of age. And elephants in general will possibly give birth every 4 years. So this one will be around 4 and the other one would be roughly possibly around 2 years of age. Beautiful. here, a lot of you are mentioning what a spectacular scene this is, and I can only agree. To be honest, there's not many scenes wherever we stop just about in the Mara. We are surrounded by beauty. Obviously, the time of day can possibly enhance one vista compared to other times of the day, and I guess now as the sun is beginning to set and we are reaching the golden hour, it will become more and more beautiful. The sun is about to drop down below some clouds, so we should have some golden sunlight poking through shortly. I always wonder, with the trees that you can see, there's no kind of small ones, there's just the big ones. So you wonder, how do they get to that size, and where is the next bunch of trees growing that is going to take their place when they die? Because there's no, like, in-betweeners. There's just big trees or no trees, which is grass. One other thing I would like to show you before Byron shows you his birds. I know Byron was discussing the vultures that you get in and around Djuma. And you do get these ones that you can see on that middle tree over there, but not very commonly. Here we see these lappet-faced vultures quite readily, the largest of the vultures. Very good. We are now going to rush you across to James before his, Byron, before his bird flutters off.
Oh, wow, Scott, so you've got some great birds of prey or large scavengers over there, but have a look what we found. Look at this. The African harrier hawk busy gathering nesting material, breaking branches with its legs. This is amazing. Look at that. And let's see if it brings it to the nest. It's trying to hold on and get it loose. That little stick that it just broke now. Let's see if it flies across over here. Yes, and this is our 60th bird on camera. Oh, wow, look up. Did it catch it again? No, it missed it. I thought it managed to catch that branch again as it dropped it. Wow, this is a beautiful scene. And very interesting behavior. So I've seen where the nest is, and I will show it to you shortly. Maybe this bird flies back to the nest. But interesting to see how it's trying to gather nesting material, small branches, to potentially take back and add on to the nest. One of my favorite birds of prey. I do enjoy these African harrier hawks. It's very different in their movement and the way they hop around branches and trees from some of the other eagles and birds of prey. And there it goes. Hold on. Let me just move forward a little bit. I think we'll get a nice view through here, Seb. There we go. How's that? Is it good? I can hear a pearl-spotted owl calling. I wonder if we'd be able to find another little owlet. I think we've been so lucky already with some of the birds we've seen. It's always nice to see these little owls. If you can spot them, it's very difficult because they hide up in the canopies of the trees and they're not very big at all. Watch, look at this. CNAC, so these African harrier hawks don't actually hunt on the ground as much. Well, they do sometimes, but they prefer raiding nests. Let's see if it takes off with this branch. So, as I said, they prefer raiding nests, so they will go and raid nests for chicks, for eggs. That's mainly what they feed on. And those agile legs or Very nimble legs, are able to bend, as you can see. Look at that, amazing. And it will then bend and stick that long neck. Oh, there it goes. There it goes. Well done, Seb. Wow. Now, don't worry, it's probably going to fly behind us, but I'll reposition. Let's see. Oh, wow. Now that isn't where the nest is. Hold on a second. I'm going to reposition quickly. I'll tell you why. Let me just drive away here a little bit. This is very, very interesting behavior. What I want to do is I want to turn around here quickly. And the reason for that is the nest wasn't too far behind us. So I don't want to disturb the eagle, this bird of prey, the hawk, African hairy hawk. So let's see, if I stop here, maybe it decides to go to the nest. There, it's flying, and exactly, it's now gone to the nest. There it is, in the tree. The nest is just above it. Let's see if it climbs up there. It's hiding a little bit. Alright, well, I might sit here for a few more minutes watching this African hairy hawk. Let's quickly go back to James in the Mara, and he's managed to find a lion.
We have found a lion, a collared lion, and I don't think it's the same collared cat that Scott had. I think he had a cheetah. It had more spots than this one does. Now, there's some buffalo around here. I don't think he's going to have a go at them, but I believe that he's not the only one here. My colleagues who are getting a little rambunctious on the back of this vehicle tell me that there are at least 4 in amongst the grass here. I'm not sure that that is necessarily true, because I certainly haven't seen them, but there might be. And the buffalo are watching him quite carefully. I think we can probably move forward a bit. That's not a bad return, you know, 3 lions suddenly. They're not encircling these chaps. The buffalo, I mean. This man needs some parking lessons. In fact, I would suggest that he needs 5 or 6 parking lessons. Right, let's just get a little bit, I just want to get a little bit ahead of them so that we can see where he's going. I think he is actually stalking those buffalo, you know. I wonder if 1 or 2 haven't gone around the other side. Mano, I'm going to horribly unlevel your camera, and then it is going to level itself. There you go. There they come. Oh, come on. Really? Did you guys really see more lions than just that one? No. There's now some debate, everybody. Everyone's looking at each other saying, I didn't say that. No, I didn't either. No, well, I don't know. There's only one lion. There he is. We'll keep an eye out just in case there aren't some others sneaking around the back to attack the buffalo, but I think not. Now, much the same as those other 2 youngsters, I think he will get up and possibly go hunting during the course of the evening. He might be a slightly better bet, because I can see wildebeest not far from here. And I wonder if he isn't sort of moving towards them in the hopes that as night falls, he won't be able to get himself a bit of a meal. Now, Henk, you're wondering why it is necessary to put a collar on a lion. Well, Henk, much the same as my parents have put a collar on their dog Fenton. If he gets lost, of course, what happens is that somebody will pick him up, and his phone number is on the little tag that he has on his collar. They'll phone my mum and dad, and Fenton will be fetched in time for supper. Now, the same thing goes for this lion, well, in a manner of speaking. The collar is to locate him. It has a sophisticated battery pack on it, and it will give a ping with some elephants on the left there. Far left, Manu, elephants. Big grey things. There we go. No, we've gone past them now. They're just over the top of the buffalo. Henk, what that collar does is give a ping, say once a day or once every 2 days, depending on what it's programmed to do. And that, well, it's a GPS ping. It allows researchers to know exactly where he is, and there are a number of cats around here that have the same kind of collar. There's a huge amount of research that is done here. This is the first or second lion. It's the second lion I've seen with a collar. We know of at least 2 or 3 cheetah that have got collars on them, and that's just an easy way for the researchers to keep track on their movements, and instead of spending all their time sort of trying to find them, they can go straight to them and then assess what's going on. Penny, you're just 6 years old and you want to know how on earth do you get a collar on a lion? Well, that's a really good question, because it's not easy to put a collar on a lion, is it? Because a lion is a very big animal and it doesn't really like people very much. So what they do, Penny, is they give it an injection, but they give it an injection with a special kind of, I'm going to use the word gun, but it's not something that hurts the lion. So what they do is they shoot an injection into the lion's bottom. He goes to sleep. And they quickly get out of the car, run over to him, put the collar on, tighten it up, and give him another little injection which wakes him up. And before he wakes up, they jump back in the car and pretend that they don't know what's going on. And that's how they put a collar on a lion. And these buffalo are now starting to move a little bit closer to him, because, of course, they now can't see him. Now, what that means is that they have seen a predator walk past them. They're not afraid when they know where he is, because they are, they're aware of how close he's getting, they're aware of what his strategy is. Once he disappears in amongst the grass, they start to think to themselves, well, is he stalking us? Could he be about to jump on one of us? And that's why they're walking slowly towards him. I don't think he's going to try and hunt them. I think that he is a bit small to be taking on a buffalo on his own, especially one of 3 big buffalo bulls. And unlike the wildebeest that we've watched sort of being devoured and killed and murdered by the predators of this area, the buffalo will defend each other. I've been amazed, especially watching Scott and his cheetah, how those wildebeest, one of them made one attempt to help his mates, to no avail at one stage, but the rest of them just stand around and watch as the cheetah kill their colleagues. And I find it quite amazing because, of course, buffalo are blessed with, not buffalo, wildebeest are blessed with fairly sharp horns, and they don't seem to use them at all to protect each other. I find it a bit strange. Hello, William. You want to know how often Cape buffalo will attack lions. William, it's normally sort of 3 times a day, sometimes 4, sometimes 2. I'm obviously talking nonsense, William. It really does depend, William, on how often lions attack buffalo. And so if you go to a place like Djuma, you'll find the Nkuhuma pride attack buffalo on a fairly regular basis, and they therefore will be attacked in turn by buffalo more often than the lions here, especially at this time of year, because the lions here are leaving the buffalo alone. There are easier things to kill, and so they're spending their time hunting wildebeest, and that means that they don't come into contact with buffalo as much as they would in a place like the Kruger. So there's no way to say, 3 or 4 times a week or whatever it is, William. It just depends on how often they have an interaction together. It's quite a nice shot there, known as a 2-shot in the game. Alrighty, let's head across to Scott, who I believe has a beautiful scene, the same one that I'm having to look at past Gendre, so I think you'll probably get a better view where you are.
We certainly do have a magical scene unfolding here. We're not far from our final destination, an area called the Salt Lick, and we just thought we would stop and show you this beauty before we get there, and also before the sun disappears, and also before you head off to Djuma, where it sounds like Byron has found something very, very beautiful as well.
Ah, yes, look at this, everyone. What a treat. We just drove away from that that nest of the African harrier hawk, and Sebastian and I managed to spot this leopard on a termite mound. Isn't that amazing? I'm not sure which leopard this is. It looks like a young male. What a treat. Isn't this wonderful? When we did find him, he had his head up, and he just put his head down and rested. I think if he didn't have his head up, we wouldn't have spotted him. This is really, really wonderful. Look at that. Yeah, we have been so lucky the last 2 days. Some amazing sightings down here in the greater Kruger National Park. Lots of lion activity, leopards, elephant, just a lot going on. And I wonder if this isn't that young male Thamba. I can't see very clearly. There's now a bush in front of his face. What do all of you think? Maybe some of the viewers can have a better look. There we go. It looks like him. It doesn't look as big as the other young male that we see in this area, as Hosanna. What do you think, everyone? Let me know. And we'll see. But nevertheless, just so wonderful to see a leopard lazing about on a termite mound. Now, leopards, I've seen leopards many, many times lying on top of termite mounds, and that's why when I drive around too, I often scan the tops of termite mounds. The reason for that is it's nice and comfortable, and it gives them a vantage point to have a look around an area. So this is very special. Megan says apparently it's 50-50 between Thamba and Hosanna. This young male is hiding his face now, so I can't tell, unfortunately. Mylens, you asked what is the life expectancy of leopards. Well, generally, a male leopard will live to about maybe 14 or 15 years old. That's a good age for a male leopard, and females on average a bit longer, maybe 16 or 17. Now it does depends on the amount of competition around, the amount of food, water. All of that needs to be taken into consideration. But generally, I'd say, male leopards between 13 and 15, and females a little bit older, up to about 17, between 15 and 17. Those are averages, though, everyone. There are times, there have been leopards, female leopards that have lived a bit longer, 18, I think, 18, somewhere around there, which is very long for a leopard. And then males, one of the oldest males I know lived to about 15, I think, almost 16. Oh, that's quite long for a male leopard too. And again, this is in the wild. I'm not sure about captivity. It's possibly different in captivity, but that I don't think that counts. Is a natural estimate. Obviously, try and see how long they live in their natural environment. James and a few other viewers, you all say this is Thamba. You believe this is Thamba. And I know some of you, especially when you do get a screenshot, you're able to identify these leopards very, very well. So, like I said, this looks a bit smaller than young Hosanna. Oh, wow. Look at that beautiful sunset. And the giraffe next to the trees. Those are the telephone poles. But perhaps we can pretend they're giraffe for the sake of the image, but beautiful sunset. Now you might see there's a bit of that very orange sky, and that's obviously dust particles in the sky at the moment. Beautiful sunset, and a lot of that dust was caused by Tristan this afternoon as he headed out of here on leave. The dust cloud that he left behind. I'm only joking. I hope Tristan has a wonderful break, a well-deserved break. We had a lot of fun the last few drives, him and I. Very pretty. Now this leopard is still got his head down at the moment, but I'm sure he'll move fairly soon. JDI, you asked if there's any plans for collaring the Djuma leopards to study their movements. Not that I know of, JDI, and to be honest, I hope not. I really hope not. Now, the reason I say that, everyone, is because, you know, in terms of movements and acts of these animals, you know, we rely on tracking and finding them and following them. We then plot where they are seen so we get an idea of their territory size. So it's all done naturally. No technology is used, and I prefer it that way. You don't want to lose that wilderness experience, I think, and that's my personal opinion. I think if you start collaring too much and you start monitoring movements, it loses a bit of its wildness, I think. I mean, I don't know. It is important to obviously understand movements and do research on some of these animals, but you know what? I think there's enough research on leopards has been done over many, many years. There's no reason to do more. The movements that we see now is natural movements, and it's nice for us to plot and get an idea. But there's no reason to collar more leopards, to follow movements, not in these areas, not in the greater Kruger at least. Maybe in other areas where they're trying to do research on new leopard populations, perhaps, like down in Cape Town, in the mountains in the Cape. Yeah, I can understand that. See how far and how large the territories are, because there aren't a lot of people down there, so that is important. But out here, there's no reason for that. You know, with game drives and the various lodges around and the trackers and guides, gives us a better idea of the movement of these animals without the use of technology. So I'm not sure how all of you feel about that. Now, there was that young male leopard, or that male leopard Sindile, who was collared when they had to treat him for rabies, though, because he killed a domestic dog that apparently had rabies, so he was treated. That's a different story. That people have interfered purely because of man's intervention. That domestic dog wouldn't have been around if there weren't people around here. So that is a different situation. That, yes, I agree on interference, but with the natural leopard, no, there's no need. I'm just going to wave to Brent's brother quickly. Hi, everyone. Brent's brother is guiding at the moment, and he also enjoyed the sighting briefly with us. He's moved off. This leopard's got such a nice little spot. Seb, I'm going to now reposition. Hold on a second. Yes, this is very exciting. Oh, it's amazing how luck can turn in the bush. I mean, I can drive around and see very little, and other times things just start happening for us. And I think the more fun you have in the bush, the more things start just appearing. And I think a lot of it, there we go, that's a lovely view of him. I think a lot of it has got to do with us birding. We've been taking our time driving around birding and spotting a lot of other things along the way. Doesn't that leopard look so peaceful? There we go, that's a nice view of his face. Now I can see this is still a very young leopard, judging by that very pink nose. Often the leopards with age, their noses go a bit darker, almost blackish in colour. Also the ears start fraying slightly. You'll start seeing nicks and little bite marks from flies and biting flies and that. Little bits of hair missing on the ears. Those ears still look quite perfect and intact. Kitty Kitty Bang Bang. I always laugh when I hear that name. Kitty Kitty Bang Bang. You asked what would happen if a leopard had to stumble upon those new lion cubs that we saw this morning. And there were obviously no adults around. What would happen? Well, it's hard to say really. I do think that there's usually very little scent left behind from the lions, and that's also why lions and leopards move den sites from time to time, so that they don't leave too much scent around to protect the cubs. Those cubs, I think, would be so well hidden, it's unlikely that a leopard would find them. I think if a leopard did find them, to be honest, I think that it may decide to kill the cubs if it did. But can I tell you, in my guiding career, I have not heard of or once seen leopards killing lion cubs. Not at all. So, but I wouldn't say it doesn't happen. But in my guiding career and guiding in this area where there's a high lion density and high leopard density, I have never heard of leopards killing lion cubs. Starting to get a bit chilly. And it sounds like James was perhaps correct with the bad weather rolling in. I think the Mara are currently experiencing bad weather. So I'm terribly sorry everyone, but you're stuck with myself and Sebastian and this young leopard. For now at least. This has been a very special day, and for those of you who missed this morning, it was really fantastic. And special, we got to find the new Unkuhuma cubs with the female lioness. She took us, and we followed her from the buffalo carcass, and we followed her all the way to the den site, the new den site that she's got, and she showed us her 3 new little cubs. It was really special and wonderful. And now this afternoon we got to see the male lions again at the carcass, and now a young leopard. And it's Megan's birthday today. Again, happy birthday, Megan, in final control. Megan just turned 23. I hope you don't mind me giving your age away, Megan. 23. She's catching up to me with age. Just a few. Megan says, no, still a huge gap. Oh, this leopard is so peaceful. We were fortunate. Yesterday afternoon we had Hosanna, who was down at Chitwa Dam, and we had a wonderful afternoon viewing him, while Tristan was with the lions. And again, this is, we are very fortunate. We've been very patient with a lot of our sightings and sitting and spending time with these animals, which is what it's all about. And I guide like this when I've got guests too. And I think it's important because you get to see animals' natural behavior. You get to see a lot more from these animals. So we're going to sit here a little bit longer with this young leopard. Let's head across to James, who apparently has a little gap in the bad weather. Let's see what he's up to.
Let's see what he's up to, love.
We have got a small gap in the bad weather. Well, the bad weather hasn't got to us yet, weather. It's on its way. I can smell rain, but we just thought we'd show you the sun and some Thompson's gazelles there. We've got the ME20 out. That is the fancy low-light camera in preparation for the hunt that we hope we're going to have. And we're just looking the opposite direction from the lion, which I can see now has just poked his head out of the grass. You won't see me because the lens on this camera is too long, and so you'll be very pleased, some of you at least, that you don't have to look at me once more today. Hello, Alan. You want to know how far the animals travel during the migration? Alan, from end to end, it's probably about 300 miles. That's from the southern tip of the southern plain, very northern parts of the conservancies north of where we are. But the animals will travel a lot more than just those 300 miles, of course, because they go to and from. They don't move in a straight line. So the straight line distance end to end is just under 300 miles or so, which is about 450 kilometers. And other than that, so I would say they probably move about double that, let's say. Now that sounds like a lot. 600 miles sounds like a long way, doesn't it? But it isn't actually over the course of a year. If you think about it, a human being could very, very easily walk that distance in a year. And in fact, human beings are better at migrating big distances than just about any other animal in the world. Let's go back across to the sun. And the rainstorm that is probably hitting Scott as we speak and heading this way now. I told you Fergus would attract us some kind of inclement weather. So we may just have to hunker down for a little while. I'm just going to have to move the car, I'm afraid. There's a car coming behind us. It's going to get a little bit jerky, I'm afraid. Alright, I believe we're going to go across now to the much more less inclement weather of South Africa with Thamba the leopard.
No, unfortunately James has to run, but luckily we are still with this leopard. Very comfortable, it hasn't moved. Whereas you asked how many species or subspecies of leopard are there in Africa? None. There's only one that I know of. This species. There are no subspecies of leopard in Africa. Am I missing something? Seb, do you know? No.
The forest leopard is the same as this one, right?
Yeah, different habitats. You get different habitats, but same species. even the rare, the Cape leopard's the same as this leopard. The only thing is, it's, again, just distribution, different areas. Yeah, so no, I don't think there's subspecies or other species of leopards in Africa. I mean, you get rare genetic variations, like the black leopards. There have been reports of black leopards in an area known as Lydenburg. There have been reports of strawberry-coloured leopards. It's like a very, very slight pinkish coloration to the leopard. There have been records of that, but that's just a recessive gene that comes through. It's not a different leopard at all. And Tara, who was here not so long ago, was chatting more about it. She's done a lot of studies on it, so she knows it a lot better than any of us. Now it sounds like Scott has managed to get a little gap in the storm. Let's go across to him and see what beautiful views he has.
Yes, we did only just manage to escape the storm, and it means we've had to reshuffle our plans, but thanks to James's success finding so many lions, he's offered to share some with us. There you can see a bank of rain that we rushed away from. We came from the south, racing north, and it ambushed us. We had stopped and to show you the beautiful sunsets in that valley, and we continued to enjoy those beautiful views, and that is when we realized, well, at the last moment, that the storm had snuck up from behind us. But thankfully, we managed to escape without getting too wet. Always a bit of a gamble whether to stop and batten down the flaps or to continue moving, but we decided to try our luck and race away from the storm, and thankfully it worked out quite well. So we managed to get away, and now we're going to continue, like I say, to some of the lions that James has found, in the hope that they are going to be getting up to some of their usual antics after dark. Well, you guys have the joy of going back to Byron and the leopard.
Now, this leopard has not moved at all, still resting very peacefully on top of that termite mound. Looks like he's got a beautiful spot. Now, I was just thinking, it must be wonderful to see those storms across the open plains of the Masai Mara. It must be beautiful to see the storms in the distance. Look at the mouth twitching there, the whiskers. I'm just trying to think. Shall we spend a few more minutes with this leopard, see if he does move, and then I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and head back towards the clearings near camp and see what activity we can get from those lions just before the end of the show. Maybe we're lucky and we get some vocalization, the males roaring. That would be wonderful. So I think let's spend a few more minutes with this male and then head across and see if we can get another view of those lions and see what they're up to. Maybe there's some more feeding activity. Maybe the lioness has returned. I'm not sure. We'll have a look shortly. I'll leave you in about 2 minutes or so. James, you say only a cat would make this sleeping position look so comfortable. Yeah, so that's true, James. Well, we really have been spoilt today. Lovely to have. I mean, we'll drive around from time to time and find very little for a few days even. But then that's what makes these sightings so much more special. Being able to sit and just enjoy the time with these animals. As I was saying earlier, we've been very patient with a lot of the sightings we've been in, both myself and Tristan, the last 2 days, I'm saying, and we've had a lot of great activity from the lions. We've had some wonderful leopard sightings, the lion cubs this morning, and again now sitting with this leopard, and we're the only vehicle here, which is also just really great. Alright, so I think I'm going to leave this leopard now. Really fantastic view of him. And let's head across to James quickly again while he's got a gap with the moody clouds. Let's go and have a look.
Yes, we've got a gap. We haven't been hit just yet, everybody. We have been hit by the dust of 1,000 vehicles, but not by the rain just yet. The lion, I'm looking towards him, and he's still flat in the grass. He hasn't got up yet. And so we're just going to hunker down here and sit and wait and see if he doesn't get up and try and do some hunting. What I hope he's going to hunt, once the vehicle's gone by, is a small herd of wildebeest. The Jondri will try and find you on those plains there. And to the right of that Jondri, they're sort of knocking about in amongst the dust. There we are. I think that's what they're likely to go for. Now, the reason, just if in case you're wondering why there's so many vehicles going past, they all have to be in camp by 7 o'clock, so that's why they're moving about quite so fast. And we're quite close to Serena, which is the headquarters, with this quite a nice, slightly strangely designed hotel. Very nice one then. That's where they're all going to enjoy the Mara night. In their minibuses, Land Cruisers and various other vehicles. Oh, we do have a treat coming along the road now. Coming along the road now, Jondri. Oh, there we are. We have the treat of Scott Dyson, Wiem the Vampire Durenbrak, Luigi Pavid, and I'm not sure who that Ascari is today. There they are. No, you've joined a long line of people who've done exactly the same thing. And Scott's just apologising for covering us in dust, if you couldn't hear him. There he is.
Very nice to see you all.
Yes. Yes, and you. Cheers.
Yes, I see you very well kitted.
Yes, we're well kitted. We have some coffee. We're waiting for the lion to do something useful, which he isn't yet.
Okay. We don't have too much further to go.
No, but just past Hippo Pools and the next camp turn off. Well, you know where those that marsh is where the birds are? Yeah. If you just turn in there, you should catch them there.
Thank you very
Enjoy.
much.
Bye bye. I will do. And there are the last embers of the Mara day disappearing behind the Olulolo escarpment. And I'm afraid not much else in the way of animals to show you just at this stage. I'm keeping an eye on the lion, and he's not up just yet. So unfortunately I can't show you him either. Let's just perhaps scan that area, Jondri. Can we go across to where the lion is and just scan that area there? We're going to change the filter, everybody. There we are. That just is infrared. Allows us to see a bit better in the darkness. He's in there somewhere. There he is. And there are two of them. So I was casting aspersions on the imaginations of my erstwhile friends in the back of the car. But there are two lurking about there somewhere. There we go, flicking tails. So as you heard me giving Scott directions there, he's going to go across to the other two and see if they don't do something. And we'll see who is the lucky. I'll just get my spotlight out in case he disappears and I need to try and find him. The lion, I mean, not Scott. See if it works. It does work. Excellent stuff. Now, ideally, of course, what we're going to do, for those of you who haven't watched one of these night drives before, is that we are going to shoot them in this infrared light. And although it's not quite dark yet, the picture that you can see is hugely brighter than the picture I can see with my naked eye. And so we'll watch them with these cameras. We will use spotlights if we don't think they're hunting anything. But as soon as we think that they are on the hunt, we will immediately go lights down and put infrared light on them, which of course none of the prey or the predators can see. Yep, they're in there. There's a road not too far from here, so I'm just going to see which direction they're moving. Can you still see them, Jandri? Like I say, this is not an off-road area. Oh, there we go. Alright, they're not moving. Oh, they are moving now. They're moving up towards the road, so we're going to have to move. While we do that, let's go across to Baron, who I believe is heading back towards the Birminghams.
Alright, well, we've left that leopard and we're making our way back into that area where the lions are. Temperature's starting to drop quite a bit now. Got the spotlights out. It's getting fairly dark already. It's interesting. Would have thought it'd stay a bit lighter. Hold on, sorry, I just want to put my jacket on, everyone. It's a bit chilly. That's better. Now, Kimberly, you asked if the young male leopards get pushed out like the lions. Sorry, Seb. Seb's just putting his jacket on now too. So, Kimberly, what happens with the leopards is actually, what happens with leopards in general, Kimberly? Let me put it like this: the offspring of a leopard gets pushed out. They don't stay with the adults. Obviously, they don't. They're solitary animals. So unlike lions that form prides and the youngsters grow up and stay within that pride, unless it's young males who then often get pushed out by the dominant males in the area. With leopards, with them being solitary, once they reach the age of about 1.5 years, that's the average age that a leopard becomes independent. So about 1.5 years. Now with these, with two young leopards around here. Sorry, I just saw some movement there. What is that? Scrub hairs, don't worry. So with two young leopards that we see here, young Hosanna and young Shungile, they were the offspring of Kruger, a very well-known leopard that was dominant on Djuma for many, many years. Now those two, well, she disappeared when they were about 1 year old. So that's very early for a young leopard, but they can adapt quite easily, and both of those two have survived, and they've reached 1.5 years now, which is usually the age that young leopards become independent. But what happens is the young males will often get pushed out. They'll have to go and find a territory for themselves. So they become nomadic. They'll move around until they'll find an open area, and then at the age of about usually 4 or 5 years old, they start trying to set up a territory for themselves, scent marking and challenging other males. Whereas the females, what happens with the females is a portion of their mother's territory will be given up for them, and then it's their job to then try and extend and expand that territory themselves and possibly try to chase out some other leopards. So it's different for females and males, but about 1.5 years they become independent, they become nomadic, they'll move around, and then they'll try and avoid older dominant males, but eventually they'll have to set up a territory for themselves somewhere. I can hear a scops owl calling, but it sounds like it's quite far in some of these big trees off to my left along the drainage line. Well, let's keep going towards those lions. Well, give me a second, we might lose a bit of signal just going down a dip over here. Alright. Sounds like signal is still good. Great. And what a beautiful view of that skyline, the clouds in the distance. It's a perfect time for the spotlight. Oh, sorry. Some people having their evening sundowners. And that's always a nice time to stop and stretch the legs in the afternoon. After doing game drive, you can stop, watch the sun go down, and have some refreshments. Maybe some snacks. I used to enjoy the snacks on game drive, on afternoon game drive. Biltong. Now some of you might be thinking, what is that? So it's spelled B-I-L-T-O-N-G, biltong, and it's basically it's dried meat, usually beef, dried and cured beef, and it's thinly sliced. And it's very tasty. It's a great South African snack. I think in America you've got something similar called beef jerky. It's slightly similar but not quite the same. Sorry, I'm just going to move off to the side here. There's another vehicle coming. Just want to give them some space so they can drive past us. So that beef jerky is slightly similar but not quite the same. Not quite the same. But the biltong is delicious. It really is. Evening, everyone. I think there's another vehicle behind me, but there's a road just up ahead, so I'll turn off to get out their way so they can continue on. I wonder if we're going to spot some more owls tonight. Alright, well let's, while I make my way towards those lions, let's head back to James, who's got his IR on.
I've got my IR on, yes, thank you Byron. Well, more accurately, the camera has its infrared on. We're looking at some hyenas in the far distance there. This rather special camera. I cannot see anything now, it's pretty much dark. We haven't lost the lions, they're in this block here. And we're just waiting to see if they don't come out. They're probably in that long grass there. Somewhere around there. And I'm hoping they're going to pop out sometime soon. There we go. Yeah, in there somewhere. Hopefully they'll pop up there. Now, C-Mac, you want to know which animals will feed on carcasses at night, visit carcasses at night? Well, hyenas definitely, jackals absolutely. The only scavengers that won't visit nighttime carcasses are the vultures, because of course they can't fly at night, and so they can't see at night either, and so they won't go and visit carcasses in the night time. But otherwise, just about everything that scavengers will visit carcasses at night. Exclusively nocturnal creatures that might visit carcasses, I suppose, would include the striped hyena, which you very, very seldom see during the day. What else? I think you might find on the odd occasion one or two mongoose species scavenging off a carcass or two. You might even find a hippopotamus scavenging off a carcass in the night, and they probably wouldn't do that in the day simply because they don't have a huge number of carcasses around them in the water, but that's not actually true at this time of year. They do have carcasses around them. Those lights you can see twinkling on the escarpment there are the lights of Agama, Mara, and that's where we are at home. Not quite in the salubrious accommodations that Chandra is showing you there. We are just round the corner in tents, well, not quite that size, but certainly very comfortable. And if you are planning on coming to the Mara, I would suggest very strongly that you check out Agama Mara as a place to stay. You will not be disappointed. Where are the hyenas again, Jondry? There they are. Huge clans of hyenas here, of course. That's become a fact like the Corey Bustard fact, which is the world's heaviest flying bird, or the Topi fact, world's fastest antelope. But they are just sort of greeting each other, thinking about probably going out for a forage now. And with any luck, they'll follow these lions. And the lions, in turn, will hunt something, and then we'll have a battle royale on our hands. Alrighty, Baron, I believe, has managed to find himself the home of a small spotted animal, and he wants to see if it's going to come out.
Alright, now we managed to spot the little genet in the hole, but it's tucked its head back in. It was just on the edge. I wonder if it's going to stick its head out again for us. Just give it a minute and see. It's just over there, Seb. Yeah, right there. That's where that hole is. Sometimes our patience pays off, but maybe that genet is a little bit shy now. This is the time of the evening that these nocturnal animals start getting active and start moving around. Come on, stick your head out for us, please. Paula, you say you're very happy that Janet Jackson is home. Now, of course, everyone, those are just fun names that we decided. We were chatting around camp one day. Janet Jackson, Janet Joplin. I'll think of a few others. No, it doesn't look like she wants to stick her head out. I think why don't we leave her rather. Oh, that's a pity, but I did see her. She did stick her head out. We saw her face very briefly. Ali, we get wonderful stars in the sky at night here. I must be honest, I love the stars. I love stargazing. I actually need to brush up on the stars again, because the more time you spend in the bush, the better you get at it. Because what happens is, and especially in the southern hemisphere, the stargazing is phenomenal. But you then, with each season, the stars move slightly, and you start seeing different stars in the sky and different constellations. And I used to know a lot of them, and I still do. But then I start forgetting which planets we see at the moment at this time of year, because we can see some planets at the moment, and usually Venus and Jupiter we can see. And oh, hang on, I think I've got a bush baby. Seb, let's see here quickly. In this tree, there it goes. Through the middle there. Can we get it? Come on, little bush baby, where are you? There. Is it scratching itself? There it is. Well done, Seb. You can just see it moving through. There are the eyes. Well done, Sebastian. Amazing. A cute little bush baby. Sorry, everyone. It's a bit difficult to see. No, I don't. Oh, I don't know, Seb. Try it, maybe. It's further up. There it is. Still through there. Sorry, this is quite difficult, everyone, because the bush is so thick. Hold on, Seb. I can't see him now. Sorry, everyone. I'm doing this with the spotlight because then it's easier to maybe pick up on some eyes. There's a lovely little bush baby jumping around there somewhere. It's right in the thicket. Hold on, Seb. Maybe from this angle. He's hiding right in this quarry trees. There he goes. Oh wow! Hang on. We might see him up here. Where did he go? Oh, there too. Did you see that? Quick little flashes. Hold on. Let me see. I don't know if they've got a hole in that tree, perhaps. Well, it doesn't look like we're going to get to these lions, but at the rate we're going, we're finding a lot of tiny little creatures. Oh, that's tough. It's tough. Now, apparently Rebecca wants to know the techniques of spotlighting. Rebecca in Final Control. Rebecca, what do you mean? Sorry, I think those bush babies disappeared into a hole perhaps in the tree. Now, what do you mean, Rebecca, in terms of trying to look for the eyes? Okay, well, Rebecca's on. Okay, so Rebecca's asking, how do we use a spotlight? Well, Rebecca, I think what I've noticed is a lot of trackers and guides all have different techniques. I often just try and scan quite slowly, and it'll be something like this, if you can follow me, Seb. So I'll often go left to right, maybe up and down a tree like that, and then through the thickets, around the trees, and then just scan across, right again and up and down the trees and back. That's it. So it's literally from I'd say 10 to 2, usually 10 to 2, and then scanning up and down the trees. It's a lot easier if you've got somebody sitting on the front of the vehicle and they just doing the spotlight, as opposed to driving, because you've got to still watch the road, which is tricky. It's that multitasking that I always speak about. That is quite difficult at times. But yeah, I'll try scan the trees, and then we will also check the thickets and through the long grass. You pick up on on the reflection of eyes from most of the nocturnal animals, especially. Some bright, rather large eyes for the nocturnal animals, because their eyes need to be quite big to see a lot better at night. Alright, now I'm sure James might have a funny technique of spotlighting, so let's go and ask him, how does he use a spotlight?
I don't have a funny way of using a spotlight, I'm afraid, everybody. My spotlighting technique is pretty banal, really. I'm just trying desperately to find these lions which have disappeared into the grass. There's some buffalo just behind, the same buffalo, and I think the lions are in the same place. There are the buffalo.
I can't shoot through you.
You can't shoot through me. Why not? What's wrong with you? The buffalo up there somewhere. There's some frogs calling, some crickets. And right now it's difficult for us to move. Anyway, I think we should try and move, because this is a little pointless. Okay, let's go back a bit. See what we can find. Susie, you were asking about the long grass. Just, Rebecca, go again with that. The long grass and what? Oh, Susie, you say, is the long grass here indicative of the fact that the wildebeest have not got here yet? No, Susie, that is not the case. What we have here is long grass that has gone to seed that nothing will eat. So the wildebeest have definitely come through here. They haven't spent an enormous amount of time in this area, but absolutely they've been through here. There we go. There's the lion. Can you see him, Jean-Andre? He's that furry thing. There. That's not him, that's a termite man. No, there's some eyes in there. I promise. I promise there's some eyes in there, Jean-Andre. There. In the middle of the spotlight.
No, that's the termite.
No, man, there's an eye there.
I'm on the line, don't worry.
Have you got the lion? Okay, good. Phew. What a relief. So, Susie, when grass goes to seed, in other words, when it pushes up the straw-like culms on which the inflorescences will sit, those are the flowering parts of the grass, it becomes inedible. And so even though the zebra and wildebeest have gone through this area, they will select for the leaves that grow much closer to the ground, underneath the culms, because those culms are pretty much inedible to all but the most powerful digestive systems. And if you had buffalo knocking through this area and after the rains have gone, you'll find they will eat the straw quite successfully, but the wildebeest and zebra don't. There you can see the seeds just waving there on the red oat grass. There we go. Well done, Jean-Andre. At least you found the red oat grass. I am hoping desperately that these lions are going to get up and do something useful, but luckily Scott is also having a lion sighting as exciting as this one. Let's go and find out what his lions are doing in their sleep.
Welcome back. We've got our nocturnal camera gear up and ready for action, and we are now just awaiting the lions. Now, I'm guessing that you are on the infrared feed, but I could be wrong. The thermal feed will indicate that there are some topi, I guess, not too far behind these lions. Ooh, and the lion is yawning, which is a very good sign. They like to yawn before they get up. Now, I've yet to see their bellies. I'm not sure how hungry they are, but regardless of their states of hunger, there is a lot of prey in this general area, and I just hope that they get up and head in the right direction. It's an area where we can off-road. At the moment, they're on an area where we can't, but if they just move 100 meters or so to the west, we will be able to follow them on their nighttime adventures. Now, you can see the one is looking in the direction of these topi. The other one has its head buried in the grass. They're two young males that I think you saw with James earlier. James found these guys, and thankfully, due to his highly successful lion finding afternoon, he has managed to share one of the sightings with us just as well, because we had to race away from a storm, and very fortunate that he did have such success, because now we are all lined up and ready to spend a couple of hours out after this evening safari comes to a close. Hello, Kale. You would like to know how long does it take for a lion to consume a carcass once it has been killed? And I guess the best way to answer that question is to relate it to us as humans. Now, I'm sure you have taken varied times to eat the same sized meal, depending on your state of hunger. And it's no different for the lions. Oh, there goes somebody on their way back to camp. And it's no different for lions, especially at the moment. At the moment, lions could kill something and then not even feed on it, simply because there is so much food around. So their natural instinct to take opportunities and make the most of them will cause them to catch and kill something, but then their belly could be so full that they don't even feed on it. So it really does depend on a number of variables but they certainly can wolf down many, many kilograms. They can easily feed on 10 to 15, possibly 20 kilograms of meat in one sitting with relative ease. And again, I guess that would also depend on whether it's a big male, a small male, or lioness, which will probably not be able to feed on as much as the big male. So lots of variables, but all of the predators out here typically eat as quickly as they possibly can to a point where they can no longer feed anymore. And then in the case of lions and leopard, they'll often stay near the kill until they've freed up a little bit of space to feed on some more. Ooh. Well, speaking of snacking on carcasses, James has found one of the animals that is certainly an expert in finishing off what the lion cannot feed on.
There is a hyena, indeed, an expert at finishing off carcasses, everybody, heading straight towards our lion friends. That is not a lion, that is another hyena. That's why they're friendly with each other. Now, it's pitch black for me. I can't see where they're going. Jondry is facing them sort of 9 o'clock from where we are. Well, 3 o'clock if you are facing frontwards, I suppose. Yes, thank you. Chandra is getting a little uppity, which will result in some violence fairly shortly, but you won't need to be witness to that. And I wonder if they're going to find him, because they're heading pretty much straight for him. Chandra, you'll tell me when you want some more light on the situation, will you? He was over there. These cameras are quite phenomenal. So I think this is part of the same group that we saw, just sort of gathering themselves and reaffirming their bonds, a little bit like a football team in the change room just prior to them going onto the field, and then they're heading out for the match. And Chandra is now looking towards where the lion is. I hope is the correct term to use. Should be in there somewhere. And just to reiterate, the reason we haven't gone into the grass there is because this is a non-off-roading zone, but the other side of the road that we're parked on is an off-roading zone, and that's where the wildebeest are. So we are hoping that they will head towards that direction fairly soon. Much as I'm sure Scott is hoping his will do the same. You see them in there still, Jondry? Yeah. Ah, yes, there they are. Phew. One does worry every so often that they've gone missing. Now, if you are not going to be with us, well, nobody's going to be with us on this particular platform at the end of this drive, which is in about, I think, 5 or 6 minutes. You can join us. If these lions do something, or if Scott's lions do something, then we'll go live on Facebook. So if you're not already a subscriber to Safari Live on Facebook, just pop along there, and you can just click like or subscribe. I think it's like our page, and you'll get a little notification as and when we go live. We promise not to spam you, I think. You can see there, this is a kind of contrast that an animal is able to see in the night. So I think this is probably a much more representative way of the colour that something like a lion can see. The contrast is very good. You can see what's light and what's dark. And I think that's what a lion sees, probably even better than this infrared camera is able to. Very nice. Alrighty, we're going to go across to Scott now, who has got the thermal camera with the great thermal operator, VM the Vampire Wildebeest.
Yes, as James says, we do have the best thermal flare operator in Africa, delivering these epic images. And this is a toy that I have not had much time to be a part of. Jamie, I think, has been with VM on the vehicle that uses this thermal camera called the Flare, and it's an absolutely incredible addition to our bunch of toys that we're using at the moment to try and follow and capture and document what goes on after dark. So these are the two young male lions, and as I'm sure a lot of you are aware, the camera is merely picking up their heat signatures. Very, very useful tool for us. Hello, Lorena. You'd like to know if this is a coalition of 5 young males. I only know of a coalition of 6 young males, to be honest, the one that Brent's been spending time with, and they're on the opposite side of the river at the moment, hanging around an area called the Marsh. So I would guess that these two are not parts of that coalition, but they could be. And we simply just do not know a lot about what is going on with the lions in the Mara. There are a lot of them, and we have not had nearly enough time to be able to confidently know who is who and what is what. At least that's my opinion. So VM does have his work cut out for him. Basically, it's really, really cool what's going on here. I wonder if I can... I'll have to take a video that I can play back to you guys. But basically, he's got 2 cameras stacked on top of one another. So when we switched from the thermal pictures that you're seeing onto the infrared picture that you are now seeing, he then has to start controlling the focus and the zoom on that camera. So there is a lot going on for him. 2 cameras, 1 cameraman, still only 2 hands to operate them. So he's got a lot going on, but he's doing a very, very good job at working it out. And interestingly, he also built the rig that allows both cameras to sit on top of one another. And that in itself is a feat, so that everything's lined up perfectly. And it's really, really epic, all of the stuff that we build here. Well, not we, mainly VM and the tech guys build to make all these things work, because there's often not any standard parts to make it happen. So we need to be very grateful for all the geniuses that are rigging all this stuff together to make it all work, because it certainly isn't easy. It's not something that you can buy over the counter in a shop. It all has to be customized and built out here in the middle of nowhere. Enough of that, though. We're going to send you down to South Africa with Byron.
And then go back.
Go back, yeah. Well, thanks, Scott and James, and nice to see the lions all the way in the Masai Mara in infrared. Now we've got 2 males at the moment still feeding on this carcass, but listen to them growling at one another. Now, males, doesn't matter if they are related or not, they get very aggressive with one another when there's food involved. Some fiery-necked nightjars calling in the distance. What a great end to a really fantastic afternoon. I'll be able to hear some of those growls. James, there's a possibility of a jackal or 2 showing up at some point, but I think with these male lions around, chances are unlikely at the moment. Also, we don't see a lot of jackal in this area, but I have seen black-backed jackal in the northern Sabi sands, and also the side-striped jackal, which we've seen a few times on these clearings. So there's a possibility, maybe once the lions have moved off, a jackal or 2 could come in and try and feed off the scraps. Again, a big thank you to Scott and James all the way in the Masai Mara. And what a lovely afternoon. I hope you've all enjoyed it. Thank you to Rebecca in Final Control and Megan, whose birthday it was today. Really lovely day. I mean, we had lions in the Mara, we had elephant up there, we had the lions here, we had a leopard, and James had the cheetah. So there was a lot going on this afternoon. So much for us to view and appreciate. Hope you've all enjoyed it. What an amazing day, and great news on those 3 new Nkabuma prides. So a big thank you to all of you as well. And don't forget, we'll see you again, everyone, tomorrow morning for our sunrise safari. We'll see if these lions are still around. I'm sure they might call this evening. But thank you again. and from the Safari Live team, we'll see you all tomorrow morning. So, good night, goodbye, have a great day, wherever you are in the world. Bye, everyone.